was something that just moved in one of these two rooms.
We're documenting a structure that we found last night.
I'll go up to the house, bang on it and say, I don't believe.
Yeah.
Now,
What the fuck was that?
Did you hear that?
All right, welcome to the Cryptic Heartland podcast, where, what is it we say? Everything's fair game, nothing's off the table, and we're not afraid to poke the bear.
There's gonna be bears.
What's up, guys? How's everyone doing tonight?
This is going to be an awesome evening. I've been looking forward to this all week.
What are you talking about?
Something special
I don't know
happening
about you guys.
You sound a little too happy over
I
there.
am happy. I'm always happy. I don't know about these guys.
Oh shit, that's me. Sorry.
You didn't tell him about the
That's you. You talking, Rose? I got to get off that page. There we go.
All right. What we're doing tonight is we're having our first special guest that we've had in the works for a while. We're actually having the author, our friend, our colleague in the paranormal field, Brandon Callahan. He wrote the book, The Agony That Remains, that some of us happen to be fortunate to be a part of from some of our stories. Our investigation down in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. We'll go into that in great detail here in just a little bit once Brandon Callahan joins us. He's going to be here about 7:30. He's actually going to be through Skype, so we'll have his face, his voice, I think, on the podcast as much as we can. So anybody watching at home, feel free to chime in with any questions to any of us or to Brandon, and we'll definitely get the answers to as much as we can. So you said you had some thing you want to bring up today? You want to talk about, you said? Or somebody wanted to talk about the Halloween? You want to go with that? Go ahead.
Yeah. So we've been plugging it here for the last week, right?
Yeah.
We're going to do a special experiment that lets us go more in depth, a little bit further into what we all love to do. It's called the Gansfield experiment. Me personally, when I first started reaching out to the team about 7-8 months ago, the main reason I wanted to do it was because of who we have on the show tonight. Because Brandon's actually performed this experiment in his first book. He went very in depth with it, and it's always kind of just been in the back of my mind how this would be amazing for us to do and to see and to have everyone else watch as well. And especially being on Halloween, I think it kind of helps. Gives you a little spook factor that you're always looking for on Halloween, right?
Yeah.
So,
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
No, it's a special experiment. If anybody's ever seen it at home or they've done it on a couple of shows, mostly what you see is on the YouTube shows, the webcasts, stuff like that. Kind of go give us a brief rundown of what it is. It's just usually you use ping pong balls on your eyes, cover each eye.
Now, do you cut those in half?
No,
No, you just put them on.
you just put them into your eyelid, wrap it around with some kind of gauze or something, to
We're gonna
keep
use
it in
duct
place.
tape
Yes,
on him.
on his mouth. And you wear.
Don't you feel the love?
you wear some kind of noise canceling headphones. The reason is to distract any kind of outside interference, any
It's
kind of
sensory
noises.
deprivation.
Yeah. Yep. And then people use a red light bulb kind of for the just illuminate the background so you can see potentially any kind of spirits or objects coming at you. It's just a way to cut out the outside world to focus on the spiritual world, basically. And there's been a couple of people that used it. I know I saw one episode they used it in the Sally house in Atchison, Kansas, and he had some crazy experiences and things like that. Some good results. So it does work when it performed properly, and that's what we're going to try to find out if we can emulate it.
What did they have at Sally House? Demons.
It is in the basement. Yeah.
It's always demons.
They
He did it.
got some demons.
The guy who did it is pretty well known out there. He works for this Lie Sci-Fi on YouTube.
Okay.
I can't remember his name. It's eluding me right now, but
He also does all of the Ouija board
Yeah.
things in the basement by
Yeah.
himself.
he's not afraid. He's been at Sally House. He comes back to probably 2 or 3 times a year, if not more. That's his. And he's from California, so to give you any kind of idea, he loves the Sally House. He's been
in Kansas.
He's all over. He's been to just across. He takes trips and goes across country and does these experiments and investigations too, not just experiments.
Right.
I was gonna pop up on my phone where he's live all hours of the night.
Walking through graveyards or whatever he's doing that
Yeah.
day.
I'm not sure if you guys remember the episode 6 with the demonic cases when we did the Ouija board. Remember the video of the Ouija board and the possession? That was him.
Oh, that was him?
It was him and
Okay.
some of his
I remember
people
that.
he worked with. Yeah, but the girl got possessed by the demon. I won't say the name, but she started.
He loves that demon, though.
Yeah, he
It's
takes
in
that angle a lot.
everything he does.
In the Sally House, what he did, he went to the basement. He basically sat on. There's a pentagram in the basement of the Sally House. You can't go down to it, as we found out from our guests last week in Lawrence at the Eldridge. A couple people were in Atchison that early in the day. They went to the Sally House. You can take a couple of hour tours, hang out, investigate whatever you want to do. But the basement's off limits. They're like, well, why? It's because of the fact that supposedly nothing's down there, or maybe something is down there that's unsavory to the average investigator or whoever.
It's not that big of a house, other than that.
But there is a pentagram that's been when somebody had the house previously that performed rituals down there. Going back to our last episode with satanic, and all that stuff, they performed those type of rituals in the basement over and over. It was a witch, and basically after they moved out, things possibly progressed, and I think they don't let anybody go in the basement for that reason.
So there's a great chance that there's more things that have been brought there since
yeah,
the popularity of
I'm sure that's everybody's
just a TV show and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Because that's everybody's around here. Everybody knows the Sally House, especially
They
in
also
Kansas and nationwide.
They also tell you that the stairs are too hazardous to have
Oh,
people
sure.
going up and down. Is what they
We've
tell
been
you.
in some rickety places.
Thanks, Jake.
So, yeah, we've been in some rickety places. Oh yeah, Jake's one of them I talked to last week. And he's the one.
How you doing, Jake?
He's the one telling me about they went up there. Him and I've actually had two sets of people tell me they were there last weekend before they came to our public investigation, which was cool. So.
But another thing to be
Right.
said about these types of experiments is that we find them interesting because of what we do, but they do come with a level of
Caution.
hazard,
Yeah,
caution,
yeah,
Risk.
Yeah,
Risk.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
So these are not things for. I mean, I hate to say that. Do not try this at home, spiel, but
Yeah.
But everybody does.
yeah, I mean,
Well, another thing to keep in mind. I mean, ours when we do this on Halloween night, ours we're going to be in a fairly controlled setting. I mean, you of course you can never control spirit activity, but
nurse on
it's
standby
going to be in a
and so-
known location that we're very familiar with. There's going to be medical personnel on site. There's going to be, it's not something that we're just taking lightly and jumping into in a stupid way.
So,
So-
let's let some of our viewers, what could possibly go wrong?
Well,
There's
Well,
a
I-
risk of possession.
I have the Halloween night teaser. If you want me to throw that up for them right quick.
Well,
No,
I'll just
Or-
explain
exactly
what could possibly happen with Max.
What-
From
what I've read, and I've actually done a paper on this for my psychology classes. Basically, you're opening up your senses to the unknown. You're not guarded at all because you have limited senses available. All the other ones are going to be heightened. So there are risks of there has been reported possession on things like this. Heart failure is another one.
It's a serious thing. Yeah.
Asthma attacks, things that are panic attacks, even just things that are trying to affect your body, and some of them might not even be paranormal that we know of. We don't know yet, but there are those risks, which is why we have the trained medical staff.
Yeah, we have a controlled environment, and we can kind of monitor things to make sure whoever's performing it is not in any kind of danger, as much as we can control.
Yeah,
I mean,
that we
there may be
yeah.
something we may not be able to control.
I will put a safe word out there.
bananas.
No, I mean, before I came over, thanks, I'm good. No, bananas! Are you hungry? Wait till after the experiment, kind of a thing.
Because it could be just the psyche of the person.
It could.
getting overwhelmed by it.
Well,
Yes,
yeah.
that's what
I mean,
was
there's
trying to
always
say, yeah.
there was always the mind over matter factor that that you have
I don't
to.
mind and you don't matter.
No, we don't
You know,
That's- we don't mind.
They don't mind. I don't matter.
Yeah.
So how many, when you do this experiment, how many people are going to be in the room? Is it something that we're going to watch through video? Is he going to be by himself? I mean,
I'm gonna have
let's
to
kind
have
of give everybody an idea of what it's going to look like.
We're gonna have the broadcast set up in the room with him, and I'm the medical staff that's gonna be there, so I'm gonna be in the room with him. I won't budge on that. So, but at the same time, I mean, you know,
We do need somebody who is going to be eyewitness to things that I cannot see around me,
Right.
and he's going to be focusing on me. So it would, I mean, at most, maybe 4 or 5 people. At most, because you have to keep down on talking, commotion, anything that can affect what we're doing.
Got it.
Any other questions?
Yeah, that's interesting to me. That's why I was just wondering with the, I mean, I'm excited.
it's gonna be cool.
It's-
I'm not gonna lie, I'm nervous. I'm excited, but I'm still nervous because it's still the unknown that we're dealing with.
Yeah, are you available? Okay.
Are
She
you
said she was
doing
gonna
any
do that.
sort of training
You bet-
for
no.
this to get ready?
No.
Or are you just going into this blindsided? Like,
No, I
I
do
don't know
not
if I
think
can
that that would
either.
be safe to go in there blindsided. So I have been doing meditations, things like that, to try to focus energies and to keep myself calm and prepared for the unknown as much as you can be.
right.
But
Are
not
you
just
are
not-
you gonna announce where you're having it done at?
Oh yeah, it's at my house. That's fine.
And why?
Interesting enough, before I even joined the team, I found out that my house is extremely active. The only thing I could describe it as is full-on poltergeist activity. As far as today, I had a pot come flying off the stove and around the corner into the kitchen just today. So that's why I brought it.
Well,
to
the-
the team.
the other
You
night
think
he
it's
sent me a-
house? Okay.
The other night he sent me a picture of a 3-pound workout dumbbell that got flung off of a shelf.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Craziness.
What's up with that?
When we did the podcast in my house,
Yeah.
my printer started printing for no reason.
That was fun because just going off of that, we were talking about something in the moment, and your animal started going like crazy. And
Oh, yeah.
things went upstairs. Remember, everybody was downstairs, and something was going up and back and forth pacing at
Yep.
the time. And it was just it's always the subject matter.
No, my cat was sitting.
Yeah.
Who was on that side? You? No, you
Yeah,
were
I was closest to the
Yeah.
door.
Yeah.
sitting right behind Jason.
Interesting.
Seemed like it knows. Yeah, that's smart.
So I mean, it's there's
And
a lot
what's
of-
interesting about your house too is that it's was it like a townhouse?
It was a
And
normal house.
One whole house, yeah.
Built, I think it was 1908 when the house was actually built, and then in 1992 it was split into a
Yeah,
duplex.
so it used to be
Yeah.
one whole.
But that is the only piece of information that I've been able to find on my property, and there are a lot of other.
Your neighbors.
My neighbors are experiencing the same. Both sides, the one that's
Yeah.
actually attached to me, and the one that's not.
Oh wow.
Jeremiah lives right down the street from me.
Mhm.
And then when that case that we had a couple weeks ago is right at the end of
Yeah.
my road,
It's
which is
possible.
also where the cemetery
It's
is.
possible you can all kind
Yeah,
of maybe
cemetery.
intersect, kind of like ley lines in a way, which we'll talk about.
Yeah,
tonight with
yeah.
Brandon, so
There's a lot of funky stuff going on in
we
that
have to address
town.
that. So
Yeah,
I'm telling you, it's
yeah.
Augusta.
Is it the next?
All the
Atchison?
bashing on it.
I love Augusta. I do, but there's
Say
some
something.
weird stuff. Some weird stuff going
You got
on
a
there.
cemetery right in the middle of town.
Next A something.
Well,
yeah,
well, if you compare when you guys came in
Right.
on 400,
right.
that's downtown. That's it. Couple buildings,
Yeah, it's not.
and then my
much.
house is over here.
Yeah.
But that's where the town started.
Yeah,
But because of the 3 floods that they've had, everything's been demolished multiple
Mhm.
times.
right.
But there's no other history. Like, okay, this happened. The flood happened here, here, and here, and we know because of we're right in the middle of Whitewater and Walnut. So okay, those 3 floods. Well, what else has happened? They built a bank. Okay, what else? Jim down the street died last week. Oh, anything else? No. Oh, good to know. Thanks. That's it. Even going to the history museum in downtown, they're like, "Well, here's our books," and I'm like, That's about El Dorado.
That's
That's about Wichita. This is about Overland. What? That's like, okay. What about here? We have a yearbook from last year.
Yesterday's newspaper.
Wow.
They do have an extensive collection of arrowheads, though.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, as big
Yeah.
as Oberlin's was.
Yeah, nice.
Bigger.
That's cool. I'll have to check it out one of these. I've never actually been to the museum up there.
Oh,
I've been to Augusta many times. Try to go past as fast as I can, but not kidding.
To what? There's nothing on the other side either.
Well, I was just trying to find my, destination, get out of that. No, I'm teasing.
Taking a dead deer across the
Actually, had a
side
buddy
of
that
the
lived there
road.
for a while. We
Oh, yeah.
hang out. And, actually, when I was in a band,
Was his house haunted?
at the time I never really paid attention that much. So he lived not too far, but he lived more closer to you, Jeremiah. He lived more down that way.
Oh,
Oh,
so
yeah.
more toward the actual
Yeah.
town of it.
Yeah, on the edge. So, but
I want to hear more about your band.
Do you have any sound clips?
oh god,
Oh,
no.
we got time.
It's got to be
Oh,
something
interesting.
online, right?
So Jake, thanks again,
You
Jake.
can say something. Okay.
My wife works at Cooper Drug in Augusta, which is right in the middle of downtown.
Oh, wow.
One of the buildings there. The old apartment above them was a crime scene for a murder-suicide, and she hears stuff all the time at work. Funny enough, it's actually right next door to our 2-screen movie theater.
Oh yeah, that's another one. Yep.
That is.
That's a 2-screen theater?
Pretty sure. Either one or two, yeah.
Wow.
Front back.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he said he's been up there. It's creepy, but yeah, it's right next to the movie theater. The movie theater is definitely.
It's on him. Yeah. I've
Yeah,
heard that
definitely has
before.
stuff happening. And right on the other side of that is the original house of Augusta, which is connected to the museum.
Yeah. Oh, cool. I didn't know
So
that.
it's this big. It's fine.
I think eventually we'll get out there, especially with YouTube being out there. We'll try to get the connections out there and go out there.
Well, we've
and
had
see
a
what's-
case out there before, haven't? Well, you guys before.
Yeah, it
joined.
was the Augusta Hospital.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
Which
Which
they
is
had-
no
That's a
longer
cool
there.
place. We have there's some really interesting footage from there on the ELP website.
So
Is it
it
on
no
the
longer
RTP
is there,
website
right?
too?
No.
No,
The
it's on
hospital's
the
gone.
it's on the ELP YouTube page also too.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's
there's
the Phantom
Yeah.
the lab
Yeah.
legs walking.
either a
past
lab
the
Yeah.
coat or
The building is actually still there. It's
Is
not. Yes, it is.
I need to go out there. And
It's
I've never been.
it's an event center now.
Okay, that's what I've heard. I've
Yeah.
never been told.
Over by the lake, at the very south end of the lake.
Okay. See,
Um,
I was
it's
thinking it was
if
across
you,
the road
I
from
can't
the
remember the name of the street, but if you drive, I think it says Promo Incorporated or something on the front sign.
Huh.
So
I've never, all these years
Yeah.
of doing this, I've never actually been out there and looked.
Yeah.
That's
Funny
funny.
story about that though. I went to the history museum
Yeah.
trying to find that building.
Right, and you told me
Because
this,
nobody else remembered where it was, and you were gone for a little bit.
uh,
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, the hospital." She's like, "Well, the only hospital we had is right here at the end of Santa Fe, and it's a mansion now. It's just a
Yeah.
little white mansion." And I was like, "That's the only hospital
Hmm.
that we've had?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Are you sure?"
Yeah.
So that's not even in the history books
Wow.
there. So anything haunted, they're just like, "We're gonna throw that page out."
Right.
So
Just want to tell people at home also too. Anybody watching tonight, feel free to chime in on the live chat on the right side. I say this every week, but to ask the questions you want or call in. Phone number is 316-200-9066 at the very bottom. Right now we're going live on YouTube and also the Facebook page. So chime in with any questions you want to ask, and we'll answer them as much as we can. And let's have some fun tonight, guys. It's gonna be a good episode.
Yeah, it is.
Because all of us, reception, I think Aaron is behind the
These
scenes. Oh, Max too. Yeah, you've been
Max.
there. That's right.
Max has never been
They've
there.
never been there.
in my
Everybody-
dreams,
Everybody's been there, and we've all had our little takeaways. Unfortunately, like Paula and Michelle, and even Will came in halfway through it, but you guys came in towards the end of it, where things have changed a lot over the years, and it wasn't. To me, it's calmed down a little bit. I mean, to an
Mhm.
extent.
yeah.
There's still stuff going on, but it wasn't like the very first few times I went there. And it's just like I'm looking over my shoulder, constantly what's in the woods staring at me.
hmm
Just weird occurrences.
isn't that where Jason actually saw his first
Yeah.
full body apparition?
That was the last trip. Yep.
Yeah, well,
I still don't know if it was full body or if it was full body something hairy.
Could be a
That's a
Bigfoot.
possibility.
Shadow, right?
What
Yeah.
It wasn't like a shadow. I saw a full-on figure coming from around the house walking.
Wait a minute. Did Jeremiah have a shirt off again? Because
Unfortunately, he was sitting at the campfire.
So he stood up.
I think I was the other direction.
He said Harry was big and tall, so I thought that was my go-to. So.
And Brendan was sitting next. Brendan, Bigfoot guy, he was sitting next to. Well, I was standing. He was sitting. I was still the same height as he was, but sitting right there at the campfire. And I think we were pretty much all sitting around. Because that was the last trip we were all there, and I know we were all there except for Max and Aaron, but
4 days of that place.
Yeah, 4 days.
That was.
But we were hearing the footsteps in the woods. We were hearing this kind of like vocals. We were hearing stuff that goes along with Sasquatch activity. Brendan kept hearing like knocking sounds off in the woods.
Yeah.
But,
I have that recording that I can pull up later on when we're talking to Brendan. Or Brandon.
Brendan.
Sorry, Brandon.
In the book,
like
Brendan is BB.
Callahan
in the
or
book.
Brandon? Yeah, BB.
BB.
Oh, right.
Yeah. That's Brandon.
I was like on the very first
Brandon.
beginning, not to confuse each other. We'll refer to Brandon as BB from here on this.
And then you got Callahan.
Yeah.
So Callahan and BB.
Well, not only that, but when I first, before I was invited to join the team, just reading the book, there was Brendan, there was Brendan, there was 2 Jasons, and then
Then then there's Callahan's friend Jason that's been with him for years too. So
Yep, that's true. You're right about that. Yeah, you're
So-
like, who the hell's who?
So when
is that Jason? Like, no, they're Jason.
So in the book, my name is popped up right when with Leo. So it's like Leo and
Leonard.
Jason. Leonard.
Oh yeah.
Leonard.
Who's that?
Leonard.
Sorry, we kind of got off on a little weird thing. Michelle, before we get into it, do you remember anything special about Tahlequah that stuck out to you? What's the matter?
The cemetery,
Oh.
the cemetery was fascinating.
Oh, yeah,
All those
yeah.
little lights. I
Yeah.
mean, there were hundreds of them, and
Definitely, that was bizarre.
that was, and some saw red lights, some saw green lights. Mine, all I saw were the white lights. That they were not lightning bugs. They were too bright.
Or possums.
No. And
Sorry.
they were shooting up. They go straight up, or they go straight across. There was
It's just possums. It was nothing more than that.
That's
Oh,
it.
there were 1,000
or what was it?
possums.
It was possums.
Hogs? It was wild hogs or
Oh
something.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's an inside joke.
Yeah,
Sorry, guys.
inside joke, but yeah.
I don't have details on that.
Yeah, well, no.
One of my favorite stories at the cemetery is just
The road falling down. Sorry, guys.
is we sat a chair out in the middle of the cemetery and left people by themselves while we went off to the side.
Wow.
And
Ghost cat.
I was going to
Drop
say,
a bomb.
so yeah.
Anyways, it
Your
smells.
cat's smelling, man.
I don't
Really?
know if the cat's fart because this cat's farting over here, dropping
Dropping the bomb.
haymakers. Yep. So go ahead, Jason.
No. Do we still have time?
We have about 5 minutes.
Are we taking a break before he gets on?
Yeah, we'll take a quick break about 7:28.
Okay. But yeah, so we did an experiment out there in the cemetery in Tahlequah, not far from the property. Probably about, a couple miles?
Yeah.
A couple miles from the property. Well, we all took turns sitting out there. Did you sit out there?
I didn't.
No? Okay.
They went back to the hotel, I think, or sleep.
No, we
Or
were
you guys
that
not
night
They,
we were out
they were
there.
there.
Well, I couldn't remember if you guys
Yeah,
were out.
Paula sat out there.
Okay.
Oh, you did. Cool.
But I just remember we're all sitting back, and I hear Rose just asking questions, doing his best to get anything to happen. And he's kind of being a little bit, he's just and he's just sitting there, and he's getting a little bit more forceful and a little bit more forceful. And next thing I hear is this, ah! And he's, and all I see is his legs going flying up and over, and the chair had sunk into the ground, and he goes flying out of the chair. It was so awesome. It was
I didn't think it was that awesome.
If only it was on camera, bro. You would
Right?
be the intro to every show we do.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, I think it ended up finding for everybody out there. There were gopher holes all over the place.
Nope.
Allegedly.
No, allegedly.
No, actually,
Allegedly.
the ground is just really soft. It's
No,
the
is
weirdest thing.
Yeah, it's like if I could just tell you that, when you walk out there, it was like you guys were there. It was just like every once in a while, your feet, it would go down a couple inches.
You step into a different world.
Yeah.
I can't explain. We'll go
Uh,
more
it-
in depth about it, but
It never happened that way, you know.
So you mean a ghost really did flip that
Could have
chair
been.
over?
So, Rose, last Saturday.
You've seen a different side of me.
Last Sunday, when you were calling out Colonel Eldridge, what happened in the room?
We got felt up. Is that what happened?
He got.
Oh
I
my!
can't say that.
The tent. No, I got actually my left foot was kicked,
Right.
and
And you see
And the
Jason
flash-
pop his head up and go.
And the
Go back
flashlight
to
kicked
sleep.
on around
yeah,
that
and the
time.
flashlight kicked on probably within. I mean, it was seconds.
So every time you open, you
Yeah.
call things out, it kind of happens to you.
So you guys are welcome.
That's fine with me.
Maybe they
Okay,
don't-
guys, we're going to take a quick little break here before we get Brandon on the line. And this is the teaser I was talking about a while ago for the Halloween night thing. It's got a little bit of information about the our WTF Files project, and then the Halloween night the Halloween night special. So,
Here we go.
hang on a second.
You can do it.
Trouble typing.
I have to. Come on, fill the dead air for just a second. Sorry.
Sorry,
Oh,
we're
I
just
think
watching you.
dead air.
No, I thought we were off.
Okay, now I'm ready to go. Sorry.
I need to talk to my manager.
Hi there. My name is Jeremiah Norwood, and I'm the producer of the Cryptic Heartland podcast. I love what I do. I've always had an almost morbid fascination with anything and everything paranormal. I especially love those things in which the boundaries between science and the metaphysical become blurred. Those things that stretch the limits of our imaginations and challenge what we see as possible. The Cryptic Heartland crew, these guys and I have always dreamt of chasing these things down, doing our best to find the truth behind the madness. To find these boundaries and stretch them if we can, even though sometimes they just might push back. Now, after almost 12 years of dreaming it, we finally decided, fuck it, let's just do it. And with that, Cryptic Heartland presents to you the WTF Files. We have a special treat in store for you on our first live streaming WTF Files event, coming straight to you on Halloween night. And here's a taste of it.
We want to go with headphones now, or
Yes.
It's up to you. And we're back live though. So
all right, people at home. Some of the stuff there's some couple of people have posted some things on Facebook. One of them asked about the experiment. We kind of covered it a little bit earlier, so if you missed it and we answered your question, I'm sorry, Daniel. But yes, it will be at a haunted location. It's at Max's house. His apartment has some poltergeist activity and things of that nature. So, and that's going to be Halloween night. We'll put out the time at some point here in the next couple of days. So,
Yeah.
your thing.
We might even we'll try to get the time out by the end of the night, but we can't promise it. We'll definitely get it out in the next day or so.
I think I'm going to give everyone pizza that night.
Because Halloween gifts. Trick or treat. Here's your pizza.
Oh, thanks for coming, Leo. Pizza.
Are we ready to dial Brandon in?
We're ready. We're gonna have author Brandon.
I'm not ready.
Coming in.
You better get ready.
We need. It's gonna keep falling. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just looking way
Here,
down.
you need some tape?
Yeah, if you have it. Need doctor. We can't see it.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and dial him in.
Not on your table though. Can't do it on his table now. Maybe I can just weight it down. That won't work.
It's
Just the way this cord is. No problem. You have a hold dial or just dial tone?
Are you there, Brandon?
About 2 seconds.
What's going on?
Oh, we're just living the dream here. How are you doing, buddy?
Oh, about the same. About the same.
Awesome. How's that baby doing?
Grumpy?
Grumpy?
No, she's great, man. She's actually just laying down, so that's all good.
Awesome.
What the hell?
Roth, turn your phone off. Sorry about it. Sorry,
Turn it
bud.
off.
So we have on the line now our friend, good friend and author, Brandon Callahan. He has authored 2 books, The House Where Evil Lurks and The Agony That Remains. And they're both just really excellent reads. So where do you guys want to start?
Well, I don't know. Hey, Brandon, it's Leo.
How you doing, man?
Doing great, man. How about you?
Not too bad. I'm a little wiped. It was kind of a busy weekend, but I think I got an hour and a half in me. I think we'll make it.
All right. Hey, we appreciate you coming, on the show. We're looking forward to this episode because this is one of I know most of ours favorite investigative, or just the investigative part. We went down to Tahlequah with you and had some fun experiences, and I mean, it is incredible. It's one of the best stories we've ever been able to tell or take part of. So, first of all, before we go, sorry.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say it's always. I mean, I was like working with you guys. That place is pretty outrageous. So, yeah, it's fun to talk about. I don't talk about it quite as often as I did when the book came out. So it's fun to do the memory lane thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I wonder if we're gonna be able to get all of our talk in an hour and a half. Because once we get going, I know it's gonna be like, where'd the time go? We have more time, kind of a thing. Because it's a fun story to tell. So an interesting one. So before we begin, why don't you kind of give your background history a little bit? Tell us about what maybe how you and Jeremiah met, or what you've been up to. Anything you want to talk about first and foremost.
Well, yeah, sure. Jeremiah and I were, I guess, the heads of the Everyday Paranormal state affiliates. Jeremiah on the, I guess, the dark side, the Kansas side. And I was on the Missouri side.
How about the Raiders?
Yeah, we don't need to go there. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. So you don't see my middle finger right now. Yeah, okay, good.
I can sense it anyways. There we go. Go ahead. Sorry about
All right, good. No, it's all good. So, no, I think I kind of hit it off pretty well with several of the state affiliates at the time when we thought long and hard about doing any sort of, I guess at the time, a fairly well-known network. Just because I'd always had my hesitations about it. You hear a lot of horror stories when you're, getting, I guess, super tied into a lot of these things. And But anyway, my guys, my buddies, we felt like the Klings were, I guess, they were different. They were easy to work with. They were just like they were on TV. They don't bullshit. They don't, if they're going to tell you how they feel and everything else. I always appreciated that. And of course, I'll return the favor anytime. And anyway, Jeremiah and I just kind of, I guess, hooked up sort of during when we were working the first project that turned into the first book, The House Where Evil Lurks. And I had Jeremiah and a couple of y'all down near Jeff City, and that place was pretty insane. And so, yeah. God, it's been damn near 10 years now, man. I mean,
yeah, it was 2011. That's when you and I hopped in the car and went to New Orleans, 2011. So, and right. that was the trip we found. You had the contact information for the subject of the Agony That Remains book.
Yeah. And that one, it's weird because both of those projects, I think sometimes these things have a tendency to find you as opposed to the other way around. And, when you and I were just kind of, thinking about that trip and everything else, it was just that, that road trip concept and everything else. And, I was between jobs, so I had a little bit of time on my hands, and thankfully you had the time to make the trip, and it was a great trip. But it was crazy. What did we do? I mean, we were gone a week, and I think we investigated 5-6 different places at least.
Oh my God, it was insane.
It was that was crazy. I don't know if I could pull it off. I'm too old now, but. The problem is like Tahlequah stole the show on night 2, and it was like we just didn't even want to leave. We're like, okay, well, and then sure enough, we had to stop back in on the way back, and the brothers were generous enough and kind enough to let us keep coming back, and so I just I really made it a long-term project because hell, I don't know about you, man, but that first night we were down there was one of the craziest nights I've ever experienced in my life. And so, yeah, we ended up going down there off and on for over 6 years. And so that book was a long time coming. And, yeah, it was. It was just you hear all the crazy stories down there. And then the next thing you know, these things start happening. And but, yeah, over those years down there, my mind was completely blown.
What was the thing about Tahlequah that when you guys first started going there, like the very first time during that trip, what was that grabbed you guys and says, hey, this is the place for us, that kind of blew your mind?
Well, Jeremiah, we were there, an hour in broad daylight, and Jeremiah's seeing a lady walking and disappearing and everything else. And I mean, it was nonstop. And it was the house almost fell down on top of us while we were walking through. And I mean, it just everything about it felt like we were somewhat connected to it. And that night, I think the one thing that really sunk in with me, I kept hearing my name right when we started investigating. I was using my RT recorder where I'm hearing on a little bit of a delay. I really like that piece of equipment because sometimes you can actually hear the interaction. And I kept hearing my name within a couple minutes of us going into the house. And I kept asking Jeremiah, I'm like, dude, did you say my name? He's like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And sure enough, like within minutes, I'm watching this black shadow just kind of like, I guess just like, I don't know. It was almost like it was just watching me. And then it just kind of moved over across this room and kind of came toward me before it disappeared. But that night, the one thing that just, I think kind of to this day, I still have a hard time understanding was when we had our walkie-talkies just randomly start going off. And I mean, it wasn't like, it wasn't malfunctions. It was pure communication. It was voices. It was words. And he and I hadn't touched the things. We only had them just in case we got split up. And we hadn't touched them. And all of a sudden, I mean, we were sitting in that house and I I just asked the question. I didn't even touch the walkie-talkie. I said, "Can you talk to us through the walkie-talkie?" And that nasty ass voice came through, and it goes,
Yeah.
"Yes, I can." And yeah, I was just, I mean, yeah, like, and well, and when it first started, we hear that sounded like a kid's voice. Come
Oh
over
God,
the
that
walkie.
was the creepiest part about the whole thing for me. That was.
I'm telling you, and it says "Help me."
Yeah.
It couldn't have been more clear. Like, I mean, it was just pure communication, and it was funny. We I guess it's been about a year and a half now. Jared and I went down there to do a little bit of filming. And I don't know if this show's ever going to come to fruition or whatever it might be. But anyway, we had been asked to go down there and film for an episode, and they were gonna kind of, I guess, tell the story, so to speak. And basically the same thing started happening again. Although we didn't get words that time, but I had just finished telling them that story during an interview about the walkies going haywire, and within 2 or 3 minutes, sure enough, they started going off. But this time it was weird. It was almost like musical. It was like straight out of like a Close Encounters type. It was weird. And so they got all that on video and everything. It was pretty cool. But yeah, it was just this things I had never experienced before just continuously happened. And it was pretty much relentless. Like every time we went down there, something crazy happened.
Yeah, that was.
The child voice that you heard, was it boy or girl?
I couldn't really tell because it was, I mean, I would guess, like maybe, I mean, if I had to put an age to it, maybe 6, 7 years old. I mean, a pretty young sounding child. I would, if I had to guess, I'd say it sounded more like a girl. But again, a little boy at an age around there, it's not like they're going to have these, the deep voice and everything else. So it was kind of hard to tell. But, when we caught it again, and I don't know if I ever played it for you, Jeremiah, but I've got a clip when this other nasty voice was coming through the walkies. You can actually hear the same child voice in the background when this thing was talking.
Oh,
and
whoa.
It said "help" again. And it was right when this other nasty voice was coming through. It was pretty creepy. So it was repeated. And like I said, we never touched them. We never called out. We were on pretty random off channels. It wasn't like, line of sight down there, I think we all know.
Yeah, there is no line of sight down there.
Right. You're in the Ozarks. And so you're up and down hills and everything else. So, they shouldn't have been doing what they were doing. We couldn't figure it out, but it was consistent. I mean, it happened. I think we had 7 or 8 different interactions just like that. It was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty insane.
So, Brandon, this is Roth. I've worked with you a couple times out there. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, how you doing, man?
I'm the one that got the truck stuck.
Yeah, you almost got the RV stuck.
Oh, man. That's why I bring Jared everywhere. He crawls through the mud for me, and I mean I'll tell you a story real quick. Actually, go ahead with your question, but remind me about the mud. We've got a nice one for that.
Okay, one of my questions for you is, as long as I've been in this group, everybody's got a story on why they got involved with the paranormal. I know that you and Jeremiah had, got this idea to just take off, quit everything you were doing, whatever money you had, jumped in the car and took off. But did Tahlequah have anything that just made you go, okay, this is what I want to do,
I had decided that several years before. I had to, after the place that we were working on near Jeff City, from that first book, I had to make some decisions because I got assaulted. I mean, I got followed home, and I got, it was a nightmare that came true. And so I had to make some decisions if I was really going to be in this. And I wanted to make sure that whenever I was doing what I was doing it for the right reasons. And I've always been kind of a big picture guy rather than an instant gratification guy. And so I did. I decided that I needed to invest what I could, and I wanted to, I guess it was kind of at that point in time, I just decided that was what I was going to do. And so really prior to the Tahlequah trip, I was all in. Like, I mean, I had been in the field, I think probably 3 years, a little less than 3 years probably, when we ended up finding that place in Tahlequah. And that there was so much, just, I don't even want to say life changing, but it was like mentality changing. Like, I had to start questioning my beliefs and what I really felt was real. And that was one of the big things that brought me into this in the first place, because you hear stories all the time, but I'm also one of those people that if I don't see it and if I don't hear it or feel it, then I have a hard time kind of wrapping my mind around it. So that was one of the big reasons I got into this in the first place, 10, 11 years ago.
Well, I really appreciate answering that, because I've always kind of wanted to know, what really got everybody involved in this, and
yeah,
made it their life. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was lucky because I was lucky to work with the people that I worked with, and I've always kept it pretty small. I've always kept my social circle fairly tight knit, and that's when when Jeremiah and I just kind of started talking, I felt really comfortable with him, and then we got a chance to work together. And yeah, I always have a blast with you guys. You conduct yourselves very well. You keep it professional. I had also worked with some other people along the way that were just the opposite, and that's it kind of, I guess, cemented the idea of why I am a little bit picky when it comes to who I surround myself with.
I could vouch for that. This is Leo. Every time we've kind of hung out down in Tahlequah, it's been like family. I mean, from the brothers themselves to to working with you and your crew and our crew, it feels like home. It feels right, and I think we all share the same passion, the same common bond. We're there for the story itself, not necessarily for ourselves, and it just comes through with how we, I think, each other interact. One another, basically.
Well, and that was one of the big things is, I'm a history lover, you know what I mean? And when we first started researching Tahlequah, I started looking into the Trail of Tears, and of course I've always been into this ley line research too. And so it was like double whammy. Like, I knew I had to be down there, and sure enough, it for me, I couldn't have worked with a better person, just being open-minded and willing to sacrifice here and there, because we have to. If you don't, then you're not really going to accomplish anything. And so it worked out really well, and like I said, I feel like it pretty much found me as opposed to the other way around.
Right. I remember so we hopped in that car and we took off, and my whole deal was New Orleans. I wanted to get to New Orleans and investigate New Orleans.
Yeah.
And
I wanted to eat.
That was good too. I wanted to eat in New Orleans too, just like you. But you kept kind of steering us. Hey, I got some info on this place over here. Let's go check this out. And I think it was what, the second night of our trip that we actually went to Tahlequah.
Yeah, because we went down to Galena that first night.
Yeah. That was interesting too. That was a fun night itself with the old brothel and.
Yeah, they've totally renovated that building now. You wouldn't even recognize it if you saw it. I mean,
really?
Looked like at the time when you and I were there, it looked like something straight out of a horror movie. Like, I mean, the broken down old house, and I mean, it was like straight out of a horror movie. I can't say that I mean, I've investigated there a handful of times. It never really blew my hair back, but little things here and there. It was a cool place, but they've totally renovated it. It looks totally different now.
That's cool. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that second night when we hit Tahlequah, it was like, well, shit. Now what do we do? Because I mean, with this is our trip. I mean, And we
That's what I'm saying. We had this big grand scheme that we had cooked up and everything else, but then it's just like, I mean, just absolute, I don't know, right hook from nowhere. Did not see that coming at all. And well, it was funny because we had very little information about the property in Tahlequah when we got there. I mean, I had gotten an email and a little bit of a description, and to be honest, I was mostly just expecting your standard stuff. But then what you and I mean, we ended up spending most of the afternoon with our just walk around and them telling stories. And it was just like one thing after another. And it's like, hold on. Jeremiah, you can vouch for this. I had to literally just stop. I'm like, okay, hold on. Like, somebody's full of shit.
Right.
Like, they have to be. And then it just starts happening. And it's like, whatever. It was hard.
Do you remember towards the end of our little tour of our walk around after we were talking to the brothers, when we had to kind of pull aside into a huddle, and you actually said those words to me. Someone's got to be full of shit here.
That's right.
But the thing that impressed me about the whole thing is it was, I tell people all the time with that book, and I know Leo and Jason, I've heard them say this too. If you weren't there, it is hard to believe. The spectrum of activity. But you and I, the thing that impressed me about it so much is that you and I were hearing them tell, of course there were ghost stories, but you and I were also hearing them tell stories about Bigfoot. We were hearing them tell stories about UFOs and all kinds of other stuff. All the while, they just thought they were telling ghost stories.
That's right.
It never crossed their mind that it was anything but ghosts and witches and demons.
Right. It was. And it was so matter of fact. You could just tell that it was so commonplace when they grew up. Like, they wouldn't change their tone. They weren't trying to impress us. They were just telling us the history. They were telling us the stories. And you and I just kind of kept peeking at each other like, I don't know, what alternate universe did we land in? Like, it was, and he's describing just telltale signs of Bigfoot, and he has no idea what the hell he's describing, no clue.
Exactly.
And sure enough, like, you and I just look at each other like, okay, well, we just went from little people to ghosts to demons to Bigfoot to aliens, and I fancy myself at least a little bit of a knowledgeable person when it comes to what I see in the sky. I spent 5 years in the Air Force. I feel like I know what the hell's going on up there for the most part, at least when I'm looking at something. But that was the first night also that I saw what I would classify as a UFO. I had never seen anything. I couldn't explain it. It moved so fast, and the turns were so just sharp. I mean, it was crazy. I had never seen anything like it.
On that note, this is Leo again. Can you kind of, between you and Jeremiah, I know the story, I know the people that are at the table here know the story, but the viewers at home, kind of give us a quick background, if you will, or as much as you can.
Sure.
Broadcast to the people what the story is with Tahlequah. Why was it so famous, or why is it so eye-grabbing for us?
Right. Well, like I said, I started doing a lot of ley line research, which ley lines, if you look at it kind of on a map, the best way to describe it is it kind of looks like latitude and longitude lines that you see on a globe, except they go in all different directions. It's more like a spider web. And so I had really started to focus my efforts on where these intersecting points of ley lines happen to be, like in those geographical places. And so Tahlequah jumped right off the page when I was referencing that, because it's one of the largest clusters of intersecting lines in the continental U.S. And so that took me right there. And then I started just doing some historical research, and it didn't take me long to come across the fact that is where the Trail of Tears ended. And the Trail of Tears has always fascinated me because it's completely ignored and swept under the rug with, mainstream education and everything else. But when I wanted to do writing and I wanted to have these experiences, I wanted to tell stories that maybe have been forgotten or maybe been ignored. And this was the perfect one. And so we happened to be lucky enough, the Cherokee Nation down there kind of connected us really to Annette. And Annette was a really good friend of one of the brothers, and so she kind of arranged the whole thing, and they were super open-minded about it, which I think we all know that a lot of times when you're dealing with Native American type stuff, a lot of times it's not, random Kansas City white guy doesn't really get invited. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
We really had to build that trust, and we had to build that bond, and it was understandable because, at first they were a little bit skittish, but then they start telling us these stories. And that's why part of me was just wondering, like, are they trying to scare us away? Like, I mean, I'm not really sure what we're getting at here, but I think we all really hit it off. And I started going down there. I made them a promise that I'd keep coming down and we'd try to find some answers for them. And so I did. I went down there every chance I could. I had dozens and dozens of investigations down there over that 6-year period. And it's funny, you mentioned the books and everything, and when people read that book in particular, a lot of the critics will just say, yeah, I'm going to believe this. You talk about this and this and this and this, you're insane. And I think they lose sight of the fact that this was a 6 to 7 year story.
Right.
And it made it really hard to write because, I mean, I could have probably written 3 or 4 books about it. You know what I'm saying? And so it was hard to consolidate everything in it. And a lot of the time when I was writing it, I was like, how could anybody possibly believe this? But that's not my job, though. I'm not out there to convince anybody of anything. That's entirely up to you. I really couldn't care less who believes what. I'm out there trying to find answers for myself and for the people I work for and the people I work with. And so, skeptics will be skeptics, and it's perfectly fine. And I think it's healthy. But yeah, it's a hard story to wrap your brain around because it was just so massive. Like things that would happen, just one on top of the other, and trying to consolidate that into, 400 pages or whatever felt impossible.
Well, I mean, I can speak up for that. Just because when I was first pitched the idea of even going to this place ever, I was told we have a case that's going to be mind blowing. That I believe in 100% the ghost thing, but we've done it, experienced it up to this point, and they're like, yeah, there's ghosts down there, Native Americans and all that. I'm like, oh, cool, and then they go, and there's possibly Bigfoot. There's possibly UFO. There's possibly witches flying. I'm like, wait a minute. Now, this is before I even set foot on the property. And I was like, this is getting a little crazy. So if people reading the book at home are going to read this and be like, this is awful. And I see the comments online, oh, this is fiction, blah, blah, blah. No, with us, we'll experience it firsthand. We can all attest to that this is 100% fact on the story itself. Jason, were you going to say something here?
And this is Jason. I forgot to say that earlier.
Yeah, you're fine.
But yeah, just like Leo said, the very first time I joined the team and met Jeremiah, Talcott was one of the stories that he couldn't wait to let me listen to any EVPs or tell the stories. So when the opportunity came to actually go out there, I didn't know how to take it. Mm-hmm. So of course, I suited up as much as I could with I brought my machete, mace, knives, everything that I could possibly. I didn't know what to expect,
Right.
And by God, if it wasn't half an hour to an hour out there is when you came up to me and just said, I just saw a shadow run in the back of the woods toward the house.
Right. Well, and going back to what Brandon said earlier, with the name calling of himself, we were going back down to the caves on the side of the mountain, and I'm walking with a group of, there's about 7 or 8 of us, going down this long, trek to these reported caves, and I hear, like, hey, Brandon, or welcome, Brandon, or something to that effect. I look around, like, who's talking to Brandon, and I haven't talked to Brandon ever in my life at this point. So he tells the story, behind the caves, all this fun stuff, and then I pull him aside, and I'm like, hey, man, have you ever had your name called down here before? And he looked at me with the biggest, puzzlement. I'm like, well, yeah, why do you ask this? And I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know how to tell you this, man, but I just heard somebody call your name, and you just kind of nodded in agreement. Okay. I'm like, well, This is an everyday thing apparently for him down here, because I heard it plain as day, hey, Brandon. It was
that's the thing, man. It's like I've stepped in so many piles of shit. Like, I mean, I didn't know what I was getting myself into, and that place down in Jeff City, like and part of that first book, one of the main things I wanted the readers to get was that I was not going to be scared to tell people about my failures, to tell people that I stepped out of line and I had something coming to me, and it was very well deserved. And because in this field, everybody wants to paint themselves as some sort of an expert. Everybody wants to, everybody's needing to be on TV and everything else. And I mean, I'll be honest, I don't really care much about all that. I'd love to create documentary films just because these stories are amazing. But again, when I tell these stories, when I write these books, I want people to feel like they're standing right there with us. And if I have to just admit to the fact that I sometimes I let the dumbass rule my life, and I pay for it every now and again. And so, but you mentioned that, and you say my name, like you hear my name, and it was immediate. And I feel like in a lot of ways, I mean, it's with me. I mean, it just always will be. And that's why I bring up what I've stepped in here and there. But it is, there's a lot of places that I've gone to where I feel recognized, even though I've never been there. It's hard to explain, but and down there, I felt that immediate connection to the place. And I think that was part of, I guess, the allure. It turned out Tahlequah turned basically into like a drug addiction for me. I couldn't, I mean, and there were times, dude, like a couple years in, I don't know if I ever showed you guys these pictures, but I got home and it happened to be just this, I can't remember one of the big things that had happened, but when I was driving home, like my ghost box kept coming on and turning off. Anyway, it was just kind of weird, and I just felt off. Like I just felt like heavy. I didn't feel like myself. And a couple days after the fact, I had done an interview over the phone, and we were talking about how sometimes these things can have a tendency to follow you home. And basically those brothers guaranteed me something was going to come home eventually. And but I started feeling weird, and so I went into the bathroom. I didn't know what was going on, but I just felt just some sort of physical change. And so I looked in the mirror, and then I started taking pictures, and my face had morphed. Like, it looked like I aged about 70 years in about 45 seconds. And so I just started snapping pictures. And so I felt like something, I couldn't tell if it was a warning. I couldn't tell, if maybe I had uncovered something that maybe I shouldn't have, but it happened. And so, and I was just like, and again, I had to make decisions. I was like, what am I doing? Like, why am I doing this? I very clearly something very powerful can pretty much do to me as it pleases. And so anyway, I just mentioned that because, like I said, there's a connection to a lot of these places for me. I don't know if it's a spiritual thing or what. I know that I've pissed off some things along the way, and I feel like I think there is the ability for them to network and communicate, and I feel like I am recognized in some aspect in a lot of different places.
I know exactly what you mean by that. I mean, oddly enough, I was as many times out of all the times I've been to Tahlequah, I was never actually physically assaulted there or around going there or coming back. But it's all the times that I have been physically assaulted it's always been around the same type of activity. So it's like, the whatever it was causing that type of activity that we were investigating at the place in your first book, The House Where Evil Lurks. Right. It was that same
that thing damn near drew blood on you.
Yeah, it did. That was wild. So, but yeah, all the times I've been physically assaulted, it's always been in places like that where is that same type of activity. And yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It feels almost like a recognition sometimes.
You can go ahead and say it. I open my big mouth, and you end up getting you get your ass handed to you.
Well, you know, I wasn't gonna say it, but if you're gonna say it, what the hell?
Well, that's the beauty. I'm what 5'10", 5'11". You're the big guy they're trying to
It's called easy prey.
Yeah, I'm just the little guy with a big mouth. That'd be up to you.
Yeah, no, that Tahlequah was definitely special. I mean, I know for me personally, it took a toll on my life, kind of like some of what you were saying. I didn't have the morphing of the face or anything, but the first time I was down there in the cemetery, just doing our thing, a lot of things happened in the actual cemetery with, some orbs, some noises, some voices, and going back home listening to my, digital recorder, I go back and in the cemetery, something, like you said, it knows you. It said, to me, it said, "Hey, Leo." And I'm like, I've never been to this part of Oklahoma in my life, and how does anything even know who the hell I am down there? And it baffled me. But even back to my very first meeting with you, I said that it knew you, and it's like, it knows who we are, why we're there, and it knows how to, I don't want to say play us, but it definitely knows how to, I don't know what the word is, it just knows. The minute you step out of the car, and the fields or the forest right next to it comes alive, basically. And there's eyes on it immediately. And it's just a unique experience.
That was nonstop. Yeah, you felt like you were being watched constantly there. It was crazy. And I don't know, man. I go back to that place mentally a lot. Like, I haven't been there for quite a while, but I guess just it kind of worked its way into me, and I don't know that it's ever going to fully leave. But yeah, that's the thing about these places. When you start hearing your name, it gets personal real quick, and that's something that I guess you kind of get used to it a little bit,
I haven't yet.
Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, I hesitate saying that. But I guess I'm never surprised. You know what I mean?
Right.
Maybe that's the best way to put it. Because I do. I've over the years I've really started to really trust my intuition and trust my gut. And it turns out a lot of times my gut is pretty accurate. Like, if I feel like something's off, I start to listen to myself, which I didn't used to. And so that was one big thing that I've picked up just since going down to Tahlequah, is I felt like I was more in tune with what was going on and what felt out of place. I focused on it, and a lot of times it resulted in something happening, or something real notable. Yeah, you mentioned that cemetery. You want to talk about a place? I mean, it's straight out of the Thriller video. You know what I mean? Like.
Right.
It's like walking on another planet. It doesn't matter if they've had a 2-year drought. That ground is spongy and it's creepy. And and stuff happened constantly there. It was insane.
I never will forget the first time we went and walked through there. This was before they started all the renovations on it that they've done over the last few years. But we went and walked through there, and you're standing out. At that point in time, it was like you were standing out in the middle of just a vacant lot. There weren't that many visible headstones, and then you start looking around and paying a little closer attention, and there's like a row of rocks, or rocks or cinder blocks or paver stones or whatever that these poor families could afford to just put there to mark the place of a grave.
Right.
And I looked down and I realized I was standing on one of these things. And that I have never gotten that kind of a feeling from being in a cemetery before than I did that day when I realized I was standing on a grave marker in that cemetery. Every hair on the back of my neck stood up.
Right.
I don't have any on my head. It was just on my neck. So
that was the day your hair fell out.
Yes. That's what we'll blame it on.
Case closed.
Yeah, man. And we do a lot of cemetery work. For whatever reason, I've always gravitated to the outdoor. I love outdoor investigations. It's hard when you're reviewing everything, and you got to be super careful about, what you're calling, I guess, quote unquote evidence or whatever. But
Right.
I always love investigating outside. I think the possibilities are endless, and that place it did. And one of the biggest things that probably the biggest thing that I experienced down there took place at that cemetery. And I still have a hard time verbalizing it just because it's so difficult to describe exactly how it went down.
Mm-hmm.
But because I was basically just standing there doing an EVP session, and all of a sudden it just sounded like a freight train came just plowing through those woods, through the leaves, and all of a sudden I just kind of looked right at it. At first it just looked like some dude kind of leaning up against a tree, so I was like, okay, trying to get his attention, because out there in the middle of nowhere, I mean, let's be honest, like, sometimes you're not wanted, you know what I'm saying? And I don't want problems with anybody, especially the locals.
Right.
So anyway, just trying to kind of establish a little bit of communication, and there was just no response. And then all of a sudden it just turned toward me and it started just growing, and it looked like it was just made of mirrors. Like I always compare it to the Predator, like when he's in the tree and he's all stealthy. That's what this thing looked like, and it just kept growing, and it actually grew to the point where it pushed through one of these trees. And when I was telling you where all this happened, you couldn't even touch the trees. You probably got 7-foot wingspan, and you couldn't even touch these trees, but this thing like burrowed up through them. I was like, okay, so this thing's 9 feet wide and probably 12 feet tall, or whatever was going on, and it locked me in. I couldn't see eyes per se, but I knew I was looking at where the eyes would be, and I couldn't hardly breathe or move or talk, and because it was almost like I was hypnotized. And this lasted for about 3 minutes. I mean, the whole encounter, and then sure enough, like when it bolted,